Good morning, students. Welcome to the official channel of Woodbine Modern School. This is your biology class of class 12. It's lecture number 3 of chapter 4, Reproductive Health. So, students, today we'll be discussing about the topic that is 4.3 of your NCERT textbook, name medical termination of pregnancy. That is what we have seen in our previous classes, that the pregnancy can be stopped by using several methods. Now in this lecture we'll be discussing that if woman gets pregnant, then next what? After that also, maybe the child maybe have any abnormality, or the mother may not be in that condition to give birth to a child. So now in that situation, this medical termination of pregnancy have a very significant role. So intentional or voluntary termination, this is a very important point, that it is always that the MTP is always intentional or voluntary. That means that it's a known thing. Termination of pregnancy before full term, that means that full term here signifies the 9-month gestation duration, which I have already told you in the chapter number 3, human reproduction. So that situation is called medical termination of pregnancy or induced abortion. That means that the abortion is being induced or being artificially imported, that this pregnancy cannot be further taken. So nearly 45 to 50 million MTPs, that is medical termination of pregnancy, are performed in a year all over the world, which accounts to approximately 1/5 of the total number of conceived pregnancies in a year. So this is a statistical data which they have provided for you to know how much cases are there around us regarding these MTPs. So obviously MTP has a significant role in decreasing the population. Why? Because this MTP leads to the ultimately there is a no birth of a child. So that means that the population is being reduced. So though it is not meant for that purpose, that means that MTP doesn't aim to actually reduce the population, but MTP has a different role to play, and it has a different aim or objective that we'll be discussing in further lectures. So whether to accept or legalize MTP or not is being debated. Why? Because there are several countries, including India as well, that have this emotional, ethical, religious and social issues involved in it. Like for example, there the a term that is the abortion, or you can say induced abortion to be more precise, that this is being considered illegal in several religions, including in our country as well. So due to that, an emotional term is also being used. Why? Because the person, or you can say the parents, used to be very emotional regarding this situation, and if there has to be this abortion thing has to take place, like for example a woman, or you can say mother, conceived and they get to know that no, the child is having any abnormalities in it. So in that case the abortion is really a very painful or an emotional trauma that the family has to go through. So these are the barriers that this MTP has. So government of India legalized this MTP, but there have been very strict conditions. That means that there are terms and conditions which need to be followed very strictly in case of MTPs. So such restrictions are all the more important to check indiscriminate and illegal female foeticide. So this term, you can see students, the female foeticide. Female means you know that it's a girl, it's a X thing, and feticide means what? The death of that fetus. Foeticides, that means sides. The sides term leads toward the killing. So that means that the fetus is being killed. Which kind of fetus or what kind of fetus? The female fetus is being killed. So this is indiscriminate and illegal. So illegal, what, in what sense? That means that this female foeticide is being done specifically in the case of where sex determination is being involved. That means that before the birth of a child, if the parents or the concerned people want to know that the sex of that sex of the child is a female, if they came to know about that, no, it's a girl. So this really very prominent in India, that the girl child must go on through this female foeticide thing. That means that if the fetus going to give going to be grown in a very female individual, then female foeticide is being taking place. So this is obviously an illegal thing. Why? Because just being a girl doesn't make a sense to kill that particular fetus. So you shouldn't be doing that. So in that case, this is a case of a discrimination, that if a boy is there, you are keeping the child, and if there is a girl, that you are killing that child. So this is a discrimination. So MTPs should be there, but these kind of considerations should be taken during that MTP. So why MTP? Why we are using this MTP? So I have told you earlier that we have seen several different methods, like physical methods or natural methods, which we are taking to avoid the chances of pregnancy. But if pregnancy occurs after the failure of those particular equipments, or you can say the medical things, so in that case you can opt for this MTP. So obviously the answer is, if the MTP should be there, for what? So MTPs is specifically used to get rid of unwanted pregnancies. That means that the child is not required anymore, either due to casual unprotected intercourse. Maybe the couple has been going through this intercourse and there is no any barrier of physical or natural, any method they haven't used, or maybe the failure of the contraceptives or the methods they have been using, or specifically in the cases of rapes. Why? Because rape is not a willing sexual practice, it's an unwilling sexual practice. So in that case, if pregnancy occurs, then that pregnancy definitely needs to be aborted. So in that case, MTP really plays a significant role, and MTP has to take place. So MTPs are also essential in certain cases where continuation of the pregnancy could be harmful or even fatal, but MTP needs to be in a considered manner. Why? There should be consideration of the health of both the baby and the female, or you can say the mother, specifically the mother. Why? Because the health of the mother is really very much associated with that particular child, and if you're aborting that fetus, or you can say the embryo, there are lots of complications regarding that, there are lots of medical issues regarding that. So all the things need to be in your mind while you're opting for that particular MTP. So the fatal either to the mother or to the fetus, or both. So MTP can be both fatal to the fetus or fatal for the mother as well. So MTPs are considered relatively safe during the first trimester. You know that there are 3 trimesters that a woman goes on through, and at the end of the 4th one, nearby, the child birth takes place. So but during the first trimester, that means that the heart not yet start to pump, the MTPs are considered really very safe. Why? Because at that particular time, the mass of the cells, or you can say the embryo, is not very that much heavy. So to flush out that particular mass of cells and those particular fetus or that particular embryo is very much easy. Regarding to that, the further stages, when the female enters into the further trimesters, the pregnancy gets more and more complicated. So up to 12 weeks of pregnancy, that is the first trimester, that includes approximately 2 months, 2 to 2.5 months. So that period is really found to be very safe for this particular MTP. Second trimester abortions are much more riskier, as I have told you that once the heart starts to get pumped after the end of the first trimester, it usually occurs. So at this particular time, it's really gets very riskier. So one disturbing trend observed is that the majority of the MTPs are performed illegally. Why? By qualified quacks. Qualified quacks, this term signifies those medical persons or those associated medical persons, you can say, or trained persons, those perform the MTPs, and that MTPs are really very illegal in terms of what, that MTP was not being done due to the health case or due to the rape case or due to the really unwanted, or you can say unwanted in terms of the health issues, not in terms of the sex determination of that child, but they are performing what, illegally. That means that if they came to know about that the fetus is a girl fetus, so they used to do this kind of termination of pregnancy. So this is really very illegal and only unsafe, but could be fatal too. And if you are doing it in a wrong manner, that means that this is very much can be dangerous for you, as well as the health is very much concerned in this kind of situation. So another dangerous trend is the misuse of amniocentesis. This term, amniocentesis, this term comes from amniotic fluid. Okay, this amniotic fluid, the amniotic fluid is what? It is simply the fluid which is present where at the amniotic layer between the embryo and the outer layer when a child is inside the womb. At that time, there is a layer around the baby, and that layer is filled with what? This amniotic fluid, and that fluid provides the nutrition to the baby. But there is a significant role of that fluid. That is, if the pattern of the fluid is tested, that particular fluid can tell you about the sex of the child. So this amniocentesis is being done for what? For specifically the sex determination. That tells you about the chromosome pattern, that is either it's XX or it's XY. If it's XX, that means the child is a girl, and if it comes XY, that means the child is a boy. So this kind of thing is also being done, and after that MTP takes place. So this is also a very illegal thing. First was female foeticide and the second was amniocentesis. These are the two illegal things which is being done, which should not be there, to determine the sex of the unborn child. Frequently, if the fetus is found to be female, it is followed up by what? By MTP. So this is totally against, that is what is illegal. Such practices should be what? Avoided. So students, such practices need to be stopped immediately, and it should always be avoided, because these are dangerous for both young mother and fetus. Why? Because it's taking place at the second trimester, and at that particular time the mother gets more and more vulnerable as well. So at that particular point of time, the pregnancy is really very much harmful. So effective counseling in this particular situations, what should be done? So in this particular situations, the effective counseling should be done. So in your cities, in your towns, now the government is really very much aware about these things, and they have given you several counselors, the sexual counselors. They used to do what? They used to talk about these kind of problems with you, that how these kind of problems should be handled. Like for example, if you are like having miscarriage very frequently, or you're not able to conceive, or you're not able to have or to use the particular, you can say, the barrier methods, so you can go to these counselors, you can contact them, and then you will get to know about the right process, what should be followed. So effective counseling on the need to avoid what? Unprotected coitus. Coitus is the term which is being used for intercourse or mating. and the risk factors involved in illegal abortions. So this is very important, students, that the risk factors involved in illegal abortions. The illegal abortions is really very very dangerous. Sometimes it really uh, and most of the times, in fact not sometimes but most of the times, it's really fatal for the mother health, and it can take the life of mother as well. Like if this MTP is not being performed in a right manner or in a right time, like for example, if you come at the end of the pregnancy, or you can say the nearby the 9 months, so in fact after the 7 months you shouldn't be even think of MTP, because at that particular point of time the baby is have become approximately fully matured, nearby fully matured, and that particular point of time you can't take a risk to even think about to aborting the child. So as well as the providing more healthcare facilities could reverse the mentioned unhealthy trend. And in fact, while going through this MTP, and in fact after the MTP, you need to be very concerned about your health or the person you know whom is going to have this kind of MTP process. You need to be very much show care and concern. You need to be very much concerned about the all the health issues and the diet and the nutrition what is being taken by the mother. So you need to be very aware, and you need to give the emotional support as well. Why? Because at this particular point of time the mother also needs this emotional support as well. So now we'll be entering to our next topic of today's lecture, that is 4.4 of your textbook, and the topic is sexually transmitted diseases. In short, we used to say STDs. So diseases or infections, these are what? Like sexually transmitted. That means that this kind of disease is being what? Is being sexually transmitted. The term transmission, this kind of term is being used specifically for what? For transfer. For transferring of what? Transferring of diseases. And the method used is what? The method is used is during sexual intercourse. So this whole combines this STD, that is the disease is being transmitted or given from one person to another who is involved in what? Sexual intercourse. So disease or infections which are transmitted through sexual intercourse are collectively called sexually transmitted disease. Who are involved in what? Sexual intercourse. They are called what? Collectively they are called sexually transmitted diseases, or you can say venereal diseases, that is VD, venereal diseases, or reproductive tract infections. Why? Because as I have told you that this term transmitted means transmission, that is the traveling of one of the disease from, or you can say the disease, not the disease actually transfers, but the pathogen, or you can say the concerned virus or the bacteria that is leading to that disease will transfer or will travel from one infected person towards the another healthy person. So one infected person is there having that particular disease, and there is a presence of that particular bacteria or virus in the body of that particular individual having the disease. That bacteria or virus will what? Will travel to the next healthier person. So that healthy person will acquire that STD or that disease. How? Through that reproductive tract. Through that reproductive tract. Why? Because you know that if there is an sexual intercourse, we have already studied all the processes in chapter number 3. So in that we came to know that during the coitus, the male and female reproductive tract come in a contact. Like what? Come in a contact in that sense, like the semen will release from the male part that will enter in the female part through what? Through this reproductive tract. That's why reproductive tract is being involved in this kind of STDs, and this is That's why called what? Reproductive tract infections. The infection is occurring where? In the reproductive tract. So there are given several examples of the STDs, and the examples are gonorrhea, syphilis, genital herpes, chlamydiasis, genital warts, trichomoniasis, hepatitis B, and of course the most discussed infection in the recent years, that is HIV. So this is the some of the examples grouping together, that is being termed what? That is being termed STDs. So the disease is what? AIDS. AIDS is being occurring for what? For HIV. So HIV is that particular virus which leads to what? Which leads to this particular AIDS. AIDS, the full form is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. In this particular thing, what in this particular disease, what happens is the immune system is being trashed down by the HIV virus, and due to him this particular virus, the immune system lows down, or you can say trashed out, and the person gets very vulnerable towards the opportunistic infections. Opportunistic infections are those infections which usually or normally doesn't infect us or healthy humans, but in case of immunodeficient, like for example in case of HIV infected person, this kind of diseases really hits you very badly, or you can say impact of that particular disease really gets higher and higher. You will be at a very high risk if you get an HIV to other diseases. So among these, HIV infection is most dangerous, and it is being given to your textbook and in a detail in chapter number 8. So in these all diseases, some of are very important, like AIDS, it is very prominent, like genital herpes. Herpes is very prominent, syphilis is very prominent, and warts is really very prominent. So these are some of the diseases which is very prominent. Now some of the infections like hepatitis B and HIV can also be transmitted by sharing of what? Injection needles, sorry students, surgical instruments, etc. with infected persons. So this diseases or an STDs, they can be transmitted with the body fluids. In layman language you can say, or in a simple language you can say that with the transmission of the body fluids. So blood is also your body fluid. So hepatitis B and HIV doesn't only go through the semen, but it can also infect through the blood as well. So hepatitis B and HIV can also be transmitted through what? Sharing injection needles. Why? Because injection needles may have the blood samples or may have the blood stains of infected person, and that injection, if we put into contact with a healthy person, then that particular virus or particular bacteria can enter into the healthy person as well. So with the infected persons, transfusion of blood or from an infected mother to the fetus too, these things occurs. So except for hepatitis B, genital warts, herpes and HIV infections, other diseases are completely curable if detected early, treated properly. So that's why this hepatitis B, herpes and HIV are really very dangerous and most talked about. Why? Because they are not having the proper medication, or you can say the proper vaccines, or you can say medicines are not being discovered, not being invented yet. So others are curable, but these diseases are yet not curable. So early symptoms of most of these are minor. So you shouldn't avoid any kind of smaller symptoms. Why? Because if you detect as soon as you will detect, or you can say as much as early you will detect the condition, it will be beneficial for you. So and include the itching, fluid discharge, slight pain, swelling. So if you get these kind of symptoms, or if you notice this kind of symptoms, or somebody is talking to you about these symptoms, just let them know that you should go to the doctor immediately to know about, like, if you are not, if you are safe or not. So infected females may often be as asymptomatic and hence may remain undetected for long. So infected females may have a asymptomatic situation, but you shouldn't avoid that if you are even getting a slighter hint as well. So absence or less significant symptoms in the early stages of infection and the social stigma attached to it, to the STDs, deter the infected persons from going for timely detection and proper treatment. This could lead to complications later, which include pelvic inflammatory diseases. This PID or pelvic inflammatory diseases signifies what? Like, if the disease occurs, and these disease usually consider what? It is occurring through infection. So students always remember that if there is a condition of infection, there must be swelling. There must be swelling of that particular part. So you very well know that your reproductive system is situated where? In nearby the pelvic region. So if inflammation occurs, then inflammation will be occurring where? In the pelvic region. So that disease which will lead to the inflammation of pelvic region will be called what? PID, that is pelvic inflammatory diseases. So abortions, stillbirth means giving birth to a dead baby. That means the birth, at the time of birth the baby is already dead, so you are not having any options. Ectopic pregnancy, this term ectopic pregnancy means what? The fetus, or you can say the developing embryo, gets attached to anywhere except the uterus. That means that it may get attached to the oviduct, it may get attached to the vagina bar, or any part nearby to that, but not at the proper area of wombs. That means that the child is there, the woman gets pregnant, but the child is not growing in the womb, but at the other area, other part, and after a certain point of time the abortion will be there, or you can say the pregnancy will be aborted naturally. Infertility can be occurring, or even cancer of the reproductive tract can also be there. So STDs are what? They are a major threat to a healthy society. Therefore, prevention or early detection and cure of these diseases are given prime consideration under the reproductive health care programs. Though all persons are vulnerable to these infections, but their incidences are reported to very high among persons in the age group of 15 to 24. That is your age, students. So, but don't panic. Why? Because everything has a solution. If there is a problem, there must be a solution. We should always look into the brighter side. So, where can we do? So prevention is in your hands. You could be free of these infections if you follow the simple principles given over here. What are the simple principles? So there are 3 listed simple principles which you could follow, and you could get rid of this situation, this vulnerable situation of STDs. So the points are: first point, avoid sex with unknown partners or multiple partners. This point simply says that the sex, or you can say the intercourse, should always be done at a particular reproductive age with a particular partner. If you keep on changing your partner during the sexual intercourse, that will harm you, that will harm your body as well. Why? Because there is a notion of yours, your body will be adjusted to a particular partner, and according to that your body will start to react. If you keep on changing your partner, your body will be confused, your body will not be able to set up itself according to a single partner. So the multiple partners should be avoided, and in fact The more you change the partner, the more you will be vulnerable to the risk that you don't know that the person you are going to have an intercourse with is free of disease or not. If you are doing it frequently, maybe you'll not get the time to have that reality check that the STD is there or not. So you shouldn't be doing that. The second is always use condoms during coitus. So condom is the best or is the easiest and it's the cheapest thing you can have to avoid the pregnancy and the most importantly the STDs. So you should always use condoms during the coitus. Why? Because to just do not have the chance of STDs. But if you have a if you aim or if you object to have a baby, then for sure that you can't use the condom, but it's your choice obviously. So third point is, in case of any doubt, go to a qualified doctor for early detection and get complete treatment. So students, if you yourself encounter or if you see in your society somebody is developing these kind of situations or maybe having this kind of disease, just don't panic and don't let that particular person also to panic. Why? Because there is a solution for everything. You should do what? You should suggest to go to a qualified doctor and discuss about the situation, and definitely you will get a cure for that. So if diagnosed with the disease. So these are some of the very important point and preventions that is being associated with the situation of STDs. So students, I really want you to go through all these points very carefully, write it down on yourself and try and think about all the points. And if you find any difficulty regarding these points or the issues, just let me know. So this is all about today's lecture, and if you find any difficulty regarding the MTP or the STDs, let me know in the comment section. Thank you so much.